Today I've been at the fantastic Tunnel Barn Farm near Birmingham, Solihull. What a fishery this is. It's the absolute mecca for F1 fishing. Once it warms up, I mean today it's been probably 17, 18 degrees, although it's not been too sunny today, it's been the perfect day really for catching F1 shallow. The bait that I've selected today is to fish with casters. Casters are a great bait for F1s, but really there's three really good baits for these sizes of fish. One is casters, the other one's maggots, just loose feeding maggots, or 4mm pellets. That's your three main baits that you can use for fishing for F1 shallow. But today I've fished with just casters to start with, just loose feeding, maybe around about 10 casters, every sort of 10 to 15 seconds, trying to build up a momentum of feed to get those fish in the upper layers of the water. Here at Tunnel it's not so important to fish out at long lengths, and usually between 9 and 11 metres is a good place to target F1s. What is also important with this placement of where you're fishing is that you can keep the bait very tight. So your casters land in a tight area, your maggots land in a tight area, and also pellets can as well. So you can keep those fish exactly where your hook bait is all the time. There's just two rigs that I set up today. Although I set up multiples of them, I set up just two rigs. One a jigger, which is a sliding float that slides on the line, and one a fixed crystal dibber. And the reason for this, when the fish are very shallow, what I call F1 depth, if you just look at the fixed rig that I've used today, right, I nearly always use a 0.2, unless it's windy, I try to use just a 0.2 crystal dibber, which is the smallest size in the crystal range. And this takes about 4 number 10 shots on the line. Now what I've got is just a very simple rig. I've got the dibber set on 020 line. Now 020 might sound quite heavy when I'm only catching fish maybe up to 2 or 3 pounds. But the 020 is quite important because it keeps everything quite straight and it's very durable when you're catching big weights. So I've got just a length of 020 line. As far as shot, I've got a block of number 10s. Now I always put my shots on with pliers, which is important because you can make sure that the shots are shut on the line, and I never have shots ping off because all my rigs are made with pliers. So I pliers the shots onto the 020. I've then got a loop. I always fish with a 6-inch hook length when I'm fishing for F1s. I've tried shorter 4-inch, but for me, I think the fish a lot of the time when you're fishing with casters or maggots hook bait, they watch the fall of the bait, and I still like to use a 6-inch hook length when I'm fishing shallow. So I've got a 6-inch hook length of 013 supplex fluorocarbon. Right, this is quite important. If you try to drop down and use lighter lines, you're catching a lot of fish. You want that line to be durable. So 013 is about perfect for catching F1 shallow. Now I actually have a small loop on the hook length what I place over the nose of the maggot and pull the maggot into it. It's something I've done for a long time. Getting that loop the right size is so important, but that's up to you to trial and get that right. But I always hair rig maggots when I'm fishing like this. The hook I think also is mega important. I nearly always use a B911 20. And the reason for this, the hook's very fine, and you're wanting the fish a lot of the time to either pull the elastic when you're fishing with a fixed rig, or when you're fishing with a jigger and lowering through the float all the time, and 90% or probably 99% of the fish pull themselves on with the elastic. If you use an 18 or a bigger hook, I just feel that the hook doesn't penetrate the fish as well. So I always fish with an eyed B911 20 hook, which is mega fine, but because the hook is bare, there's no bait on it, you lose very, very few fish. The line above the float, I generally set up 3 rigs. The main depth for me for F1's in the summer is round about 10 to 12 inch deep. So I've got a 6-inch hook length, the block of shot, and that float usually about what I set is about 3 inch above the block of shot to the float itself. And when the water's coloured, this is nearly always the best depth to catch F1's. The line above then, I generally try to keep around about 8 inches of line above. And what this does, it allows you to slap the rig, but it also allows you to tap the surface of the lake to cause some noise. F1's are drawn to noise all the time. So if you are slapping a rig and loose feeding, you can draw the fish to the hook bait where you're slapping the rig over. So I set one rig up that depth, and then what I do then, each rig I just set maybe a couple of inch deeper, but trying to keep 8 inch line above each rig. So I set up 3 rigs, one 3 inch above the block, one about 5 inch and one about 8 inch above the block. And that's the 3 rigs that I've set up for fishing with a fixed dibber. The second set of rigs that I've rigged up are just jiggers. Now the jiggers, they're actually ones that I've made myself. They're just the normal inline crystal dibber, but what I've done, I've added a little coil of lead to the bottom so that the float sits up in the water. The line then slides through the float. The rig for the jigger, I've still got the same 20 hook, and today I've fished with just a hair rig maggot. Nearly all the days been the best bait. Again, I've got the 6-inch hook length, and then I've got an inline, just a 0.4 Olivet on the line, trapped with a stop above it. So that's trapped on the line. It's because you're slapping regularly with this rig, and the float is slightly bigger, I just tend to use an Olivet. It's impossible for that to come off the line, and also when you're slapping over, it makes a nice noise as it hits the water to draw the fish. And that slides up to a stop above. Now again, I've set up 3 rigs like this, and this is because the stop I adjust. Again, I want about 8 inch line above the stop. The first rig has 8 inch between the float and the stop. The second one slightly deeper and the third one slightly deeper, each time keeping about 8 inch above the actual stop itself. Now of course, this is why a jigger is so good, because everything's kept tight all the time. Once you're lowering through, that rig is as tight it can possibly be all the time. So 99% of the bites just pull the pole down. The elastic that I use is also quite important. I always use just a light green bungee. And this is because once they pull the pole down, the very fine 20 hook sets itself with the elastic. But you want the fish to swim down out of the swim. You don't want to be playing them on a heavy elastic right where you're catching them. And of course, a light elastic allows them to swim away. One major tip I can give you is to be always trying different rigs and different depths. If you are missing bites, often it's because you're at the wrong depth. If that float's going under and you miss the bite, try shallowing up. And as I've already said, that 3 inch above the block is often the best depth for catching F1's. If you can get to that depth, often that's the ultimate depth you want to be fishing. If you're not getting bites, look a little bit deeper. If you're missing bites, shallow up. I think what it is, often when you're too deep, as they suck the bait in before it's settled and everything's not tight enough, where if you get the depth exactly right, when they suck that bait in, you are direct onto the fish. And that's the major tip I can give you. If you're missing bites, you're doing something slightly wrong. Adjust your tackle and you'll catch a lot more fish. But just remember this, it always takes a little bit of time to get those fish in the upper layers. So it's all about feeding from the off. When you start fishing, concentrate on that feed, get that momentum of feed in the upper layers, leave it for a period of time, fish somewhere else, maybe in the margins, on the bottom, whatever you're doing, just keep that feed going in. Allow those fish to settle for around about 20 to 40 minutes. And then once you go out there, the fish are confidently feeding. It's a 2.5 hour drive down here to Tunnelbarn Farm, but it's certainly worth coming. Mike and Sarah put a great effort in to make sure everything's perfect for fishing. So if you want to catch a net full of F1s, get yourself to Tunnelbarn Farm. You'll have a great day's fishing, just like I have today.